Today we're studying phrasal verbs with bring. We have a few with bring, and the problem is they often have 3 or 4 different meanings. I hope to bring up several phrasal verbs from previous episodes as well, so that you don't forget these phrasal verbs, so that you can keep, I think if you keep bringing them back to the front of your mind, then you will you'll memorize all of them and you'll continue to use them. The more often you use them, the better you'll get at using these phrasal verbs. So if you bring something up, then you mention something. So you might bring up a difficult topic. You might unfortunately bring up a sore subject with your boss, in which case he may not be very happy with you. So bring up just means mention. If you bring up children, then you raise children, and we also have the word upbringing, which is a very useful word, which means how somebody is brought up, whether they have a good upbringing, have good parents who tell them, who teach them how to behave well, or whether somebody has a bad upbringing, perhaps a very difficult upbringing, and suffers quite a lot in their youth, and then perhaps turns out to be not such a nice person. Now, if you bring up your food, you vomit. So this is very similar to throw up or yak up, a couple of other phrasal verbs which I have brought up before in previous lessons. Now, if you bring someone round, that means that you help them to regain consciousness. Maybe you slap them in the face and bring them round. Maybe you put smelling salts under their nose and bring them round. And you can also say that you bring them to. And you can also say that they come round, that they come to. So bring round and bring to are very similar to come round or come to, but this one is active. You bring someone round, or you bring someone to. Meanwhile, they just come round, or they come to. So it's very similar to these two, but they are different. That's one meaning of bring someone round. You may just take someone to a friend's house, in which case you bring your friend round when you go and see someone. So it could be, or you can bring your bags round, or you can bring your computer round, you bring your laptop round so that you can get some work done while you're there. So it's take round, it's regain consciousness, but it can also mean to persuade or influence someone, especially when they disagree with you at first. If they disagree with you about something, but you tried to persuade them that they're wrong, you try to convince them that they're wrong, and eventually you bring them round, then that means that you persuade them or influence them, which means that this bring someone round is very similar to win someone over. You win someone over when they disagree with you, but eventually you persuade them with some logical arguments that they are wrong, and you win them over. And a little bit similar, but not quite the same, as talk someone into doing something. This would be to persuade someone to do something. I think that's slightly different, because here you say exactly what you persuade them to do with talk someone into. You say, I talked him into coming to the party. But you would use bring round without that information. You would say something like, he didn't want to come to the party, but eventually I brought him round. And it means eventually I persuaded him. It could actually mean eventually I brought him round to the party as well. That's the first meaning of take someone round. But let's give a different example then. He didn't want to eat his dinner. Maybe you're talking about a small child. He didn't want to eat his dinner, but eventually I brought him round. Eventually I persuaded him to eat his dinner. I talked him into eating the dinner. Okay, so we've done bring someone to. It's the same as bring someone round. Regain consciousness, and similar to those two phrasal verbs. If you bring about something, you cause it to happen. So it's very similar to, but more active than, lead to, result in. Bring on is identical, basically, and we're going to look at that in a moment. It's over here, cause something to happen. But it's, more active than all of these other expressions that I've put, which also mean to cause something to happen. But let's say that the bad weather brought about an epidemic, or the bad weather brought on an epidemic. We could say that it caused the epidemic. The bad weather led to an epidemic. The bad weather resulted in an epidemic. So there it's exactly the same. So, so in some situations, bring something about, it just means to cause something to happen. Very similar to these ones, lead to, result in, spark off, or give rise to. So there's plenty of phrasal verbs which mean the same thing, to cause something to happen. Now, if you bring something off, it means that you accomplish something which was difficult. This is very similar to pull something off or carry something off. So you might say something like, the company had to sell 20,000 units in 1 month, and it was a very difficult task, but in the end we brought it off. In the end we pulled it off. In the end we carried it off. You could say the football team had a very difficult, our football team had some very difficult opponents, and it was really tough to win the tournament, but in the end we carried it off. We pulled it off. We brought it off. We accomplished it, yeah, even though it was difficult. So bring something off, pull something off, carry something off, they're very similar. If something brings out the best in you, it evokes the best feelings in you, or it evokes. You might say, so I've fallen in love, and this girl, she brings out the best in me, and it means she evokes all of the positive emotions, and she helps me to be a better person. So it could mean like that. You could also say that you can also use it in a different meaning as publish, and here it's very similar to come out. So you might say Stephen King has brought out a new book, a new novel, or a new novel by Stephen King has come out. So you can see how they're similar but slightly different. They're used in slightly different ways, although they both relate to publish something. Okay, so bring out is very often evoke emotions, by the way, or behaviour. Emotions or behaviour. But there is another way where we can use evoke. You could say that new washing powder brings me out in a rash, and that would mean that it causes a rash on your skin. So there, I mean, it means cause to appear. Cause to appear is perhaps what evoke really means, cause to appear. So it's similar to cause something to happen, but not quite the same. Okay? Bring something on, we've already discussed. It's pretty much the same as bring something about. Bring something in means to introduce a new law. So you might say they've decided to bring in a new form of tax, or they've decided to bring in, could be anything, could be capital punishment. However, with capital punishment, that will probably be bring back capital punishment, because bring back is reenact an old law, and this is really introduce a new law. So bring in we use for new laws, and bring back for reenact old laws. If you bring something forth, you cause something to happen, maybe. So again, like bring on and bring about, you can say the bad weather brought forth an epidemic. You could say that as well. That's perfectly acceptable. Just like the bad weather sparked off an epidemic. But it does also mean to produce, create, or generate. So you could say the meeting brought forth a lot of good ideas. Yeah, the meeting generated a lot of good ideas. And you could even say this tree will bring forth a lot of fruit in spring, or whenever. And then it would mean produce a lot of fruit. So it also has those meanings, which are all pretty similar in my opinion. Now, if you bring someone down or something down, if you bring down the government, you topple or overthrow the government, and it can certainly be used in that sense. You could say Oliver Cromwell brought down Charles I, or something like that. It can also mean reduce. So you could say the government have decided to bring down the price of, or bring down taxes. They've decided to reduce taxes, they've decided to bring down taxes. It could also mean depress. You could say this music is a very sad track. It always brings me down. It always depresses me. But you could also say, if you're watching sport, if you're watching a rugby game, he brought his opponent down, meaning he tackled him and brought him down. So it's make someone fall over in that sense. If you're fighting someone and you bring someone down, you make them fall over. Okay, lastly, bring back has at least 4 meanings. A dog brings back a stick when you throw it. So this is a very famous game of fetch. My cat tends to do this. If I throw things around the room, it tends to fetch them and bring them back. I'm not sure why. And it's my cat that put that scratch on my nose, unfortunately. If something brings back memories, it means it evokes memories, really. It causes them to come back. So I don't mean remember like, I don't remember where I put my keys, I can't bring back where I put my keys. We don't say that. We only talk about bringing back old memories. So perhaps remember isn't quite good enough. Perhaps evoke memories. And we often use, it collocates well with the word memories. This brings back a lot of memories, or that smell brings me back to when I was young. Yeah, that smell brings me back to when I was young. Okay, you can bring back capital punishment if you would like to. And also, a doctor can bring back a patient if he's losing him and perhaps his heart stopped, something like that. And then he does the pushing on the chest and all of those emergency procedures, maybe with some electricity as well, and he brings him back, and the patient eventually comes round. Yeah, the patient eventually comes round, the doctor brings him round, and he survives, and it's a happy ending. Okay, I hope you enjoyed all of those bring phrasal verbs. Please, if you have any questions about bring phrasal verbs, please put them under the video and I'll be delighted to answer them as long as I have some spare time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all soon.